Welcome. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull. Today we have an old friend, Rob Allen. He's the Senior Vice President in charge of Ecosystem Acceleration for the HBAR Foundation. And we also have Katryna Dow. She's the CEO of Meeco to break down their use case called Trustury. I'm a contractor for the HBAR Foundation and Rob's an employee, but for the purposes of this interview, all opinions should be considered those of the speaker. Thank you both for coming.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Brandon.
So before we get into Trustury, I had always thought of Meeco as a company focused on identity and personal data. Katryna, can you give us a full rundown of what Meeco does?
Sure. So you're right. We are a company that is focused on building out the infrastructure to enable people and organizations to access, control, and exchange personal data and identity. So our focus is building the capability, whether or not it's issuing a digital identity, a verified credential, structured data, unstructured data, for there to be an equitable exchange between people and organizations, or things and people, or things and organizations, where personal data is involved. And in terms of building out that decentralized capability, doing that on Hedera.
I gotcha. So how does Trustury fit into this whole picture and the sustainability picture more broadly?
So Trustury is really, I think, a first step towards helping people have a visualization of what is happening in the chain of trust. There are a couple of really important objectives. One is to support Guardian and the great things that Guardian is doing in terms of being able to bring some standardization and ways of collecting and providing the data associated with ESG, carbon offset. What we're trying to do is then take that data into a visualization layer so that you could have a household that's interested, or a nation state, or an auditor, or any interested actor to start to be able to explore what that means. And so when we were working together with the HBAR Foundation team, the key thing was, how can we help people understand what's behind the data? You know, is there a policy? Is this policy being based on a standard? What is the chain of provenance? How is this token moved? What are the data collection points? And that can be a lot of information. And what we're trying to do is to bring that into a way of visualizing it, to explore it, to make sense of it, but also to increase the trust of it. And I think there's also one other thing that is emerging as we're building out Trustury, to also see where there's opportunities to feed that back to Guardian in terms of where it might help to standardize policies or data collection or data visualization.
I gotcha. So Rob, why has the HBAR Foundation chosen to support Meeco to build Trustury?
Oh, well, we're building an ecosystem around Guardian, and we're working with partners to do that. Meeco have been an excellent partner for a couple of years now. So they were the obvious choice to ask whether they wanted to be involved. We've worked extensively at FBOS, and now with Hedera on a number of things, actually. I don't want to speak for Katryna, but developing out the HIP for the universal resolver for DIDs, for decentralized identifiers, is a piece of what they're doing. Very much across micropayments and now tokens. And for the Guardian infrastructure to have a visualization tool that understands intimately identity at its heart, because 80% of the Guardian is based on decentralized identity patterns. You know, the verification of the data that is tokenized by the Guardian comes with this chain of trust that Katryna was talking about, and that chain of trust is inherently digital identity and self-sovereign or decentralized identity based. So they were a perfect partner. They got it straight away, and we love working with them. So why not?
So, Katryna, I know that Trustury is focused on ESG and carbon marketplaces and things like that, but I saw all kinds of NFTs. Is it going to be possible to use it for other things?
So I hope so, because why? Because the Hedera ecosystem is able to support so many wonderful things. And when you think of it based on roles and actors, the visualization layer or the experience that you may want will change based on those actors. So if I'm actually creating a token, or I'm doing something via Guardian where I want to be able to prove that, then I'm really interested in the accuracy and the efficacy of the data, and to make sure that for any of my stakeholders that data can be interacted with in a way that helps me prove what I'm trying to do. If I am somebody that is trying to make a decision around a product or service where I care about what the sustainability aspect might be, I may have a very different experience. If I'm somebody that is already in, if I'm an auditor and I want to know that certain standards or policy frameworks have been followed, I want to be able to do that in quite a simple way. You know, I want that. I don't want some massive cognitive overload if I'm comparing things. So I want to be able to access that information, and then, back to Rob's point, based on my identity and my authority, to be able to drill down. And that's maybe a quick segue into zero knowledge proofs. I know we'll come back to that, but I may want to be able to say, here is the location, and you can trust where this token has started. But if I'm an auditor, I might be able to have more than just a location proof. I may actually have to physically go and inspect something, and so I'll need to know exactly where that location is. So we're also thinking around, how do we manage privacy by design? How do we manage security by design? And then when you think of it from where we see the richness of the Hedera ecosystem, is that as an individual, I might have an interest in NFTs. I might be interested in contributing to carbon offset in terms of the products and services I purchase. So I might want to be able to discover and display. So hence that visualization of what it could be, this really rich, beautiful layer where we could see different tokens, either from the collector's point of view, the creator's point of view, the auditor's point of view. So we wanted to imagine what that might look like for a multi-stakeholder experience.
So Katryna kind of already mentioned it, Rob. Trustury uses zero knowledge proofs. What are they, and why are they important for something like Trustury?
Well, I'll let Katryna say why it's important for Trustury, but zero knowledge proofs have been around with us for kind of decades. It's a cryptographic technique that enables one to prove that one knows a secret without revealing the secret.
Okay.
So you have two parties. You have the secret holder, and you've got the verifier, and the cryptographic technique does the checking without ever revealing the secret. And I believe Trustury is using it for locations in the first instance. So it's a really good example of why one might want to secure certain parts of the information that is ingested and tokenized by the Guardian, and being able to prove something that isn't in the clear or isn't available to just anyone who's monitoring the token through these wonderful, rich visualization tools.
I gotcha. So,
Katryna? Right?
Yeah, and I think the reason we settled on location proof is it's kind of the starting point for many activities, is to say that something is happening from an environmental point of view. Something is happening somewhere on the planet with this soil, with this solar, with this tree, with this sheep, with this seaweed, whatever it is. And so when you start to think about that chain of trust, there's obviously the creation of the token, but there is also, kind of what's the birth of this project? Where did it start? And it started somewhere on the planet. And so the idea of doing a location proof is exactly as Rob is saying, is you want to be able to trust the origin, but you also want to be able to provide the right privacy and security around that location for a number of reasons. It could be, just basically to protect people's general privacy, or the security of a facility, or some R&D that is happening that is a breakthrough technology. And I can think of a number of examples where there is some really amazing stuff that is happening to combat climate change. And it might be you want to be able to legitimize the source, but at the same time make sure that access to certain parts of that information is only revealed to a relevant stakeholder within the context of a role. So that's the other thing that we're trying to achieve with Trustury, is to start to build out the policies, the workflows, the origin, the provenance, but also this idea back to identity of roles and actors. And not every actor and not every role needs to or should have access to all the information, but based on the role and the actor, you should have access to the information that is relevant to what it is that you're trying to trust and verify.
Okay, so when do you think you're actually going to be able to get to launch with this and people can actually leverage it?
So we have a very ambitious development trajectory that we're on right now. Our aim is to have MVP after summer, and I have to say Northern Hemisphere, because I come from Australia, even though I'm in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment. So when we think of summer, we think of December this year, January 2023, but we're talking Northern Hemisphere. So we're looking to have MVP out June, July, and then obviously we're working with a number of stakeholders that are working around Guardian at the moment and doing some amazing things with Guardian, is to start to look at, well, where can this go? And one really good example right now is that our vision of visualization also relies on data that can be visualized. So some of the things that are coming out as we're building is saying, oh, look, this is an opportunity maybe for certain data to be available that could be put into some sort of standardized charting for a comparison point of view. Or what about a library of symbology so that you understand something's solar, something's wind, something's soil. So we're also a typical experience when you develop something. So there's the concept, then there's the reality of building it. And now we're coming up against, well, what is that visual language, and how, from an open source point of view, could we also contribute back to the community to start to build out that symbology? And how could that symbology then possibly go back, into Guardian or to other things that sort of creates that familiarity of trust that can be used as well. So I would say we're right in the thick of it right now. My watch is pinging every few minutes with commits. So I can see activity, which makes me very happy. But we are also in that process of how do we achieve what we want to from a visual point of view, the sources of data, and how can that data be standardized in a way so that we can build that familiarity. And there's some of the interesting challenges we're working through right now.
I gotcha. So, and MVP, I know sometimes acronyms get people tripped up. That's minimum viable product?
I think I like to say maximum valuable product.
There you go. There you
You're
go.
absolutely right. I mean, what we want to be able to do in the time that we have, with so many great things that are happening around the Guardian ecosystem, is to have something out in market as soon as possible. But I guess the reason we're saying MVP is we're all around these initiatives. We're at the beginning of the beginning. on anything with ESG. I mean, we understand there's a lot of greenwashing at enterprise and corporate levels, and I think as people become more aware of the action they can take, a big part of, you know, if your airline asks you to offset carbon, or if you buy something in the supermarket, that's a great start. But then the question is, well, you know, was a tree really planted, or did this really happen, or did that really happen? And so we're at the beginning of putting the infrastructure in place to be able to collect, access, control, exchange, trust, verify that whole chain of trust. And so I see, as Guardian is developing, I see something like Trustury, which will be open source, being able to develop in parallel, and the richness of what's possible to grow as we see more functionality come into Guardian as well.
Okay, so Rob, how large are the carbon marketplaces currently, and how large could they become?
Well, they're huge. I mean, carbon markets are typically divided into regulated or compliance-based markets, and then there's the voluntary markets. The compliance ones are easier to measure because there's data there. It's about $260 billion last year or 2 years ago. It's pretty big. And post COP26, with climate being on everyone's mind, that's escalating. So that's the regulated market. Voluntary markets, very difficult to measure. Some studies have said it could be significantly more than that. So 500 billion, even $1 trillion, worth over the next 10, 20 years. And that's just carbon. I mean, we talk about carbon a lot because it's that kind of clearing present urgency that we have. But nature-related markets is the superset of carbon. If you imagine, we talk about ESG, but ESG is really just the corporate, the enterprise flip side of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the SDGs are more than just carbon. That's kind of everything that makes this world, a nicer place and a better place to live on than maybe it has been, or the direction of travel we're going in. So nature-related markets include biodiversity. They include water rights. We announced the grant to Civic Ledger. We have so many projects that will be announced over the course of the next months and years in terms of mangrove restoration, in terms of peatlands, in terms of reforestation, all of which are not just, you can't isolate it into carbon. There's a habitat renewal aspect, there's always a water aspect. It's very complex, as systems are, very complex, interrelated ecosystems. And so one of the wonderful things that Guardian can do because of this policy-driven tokenization engine, the policies can be quite complex, and what we're looking at now is how those policies can be defined, not just to say this is a carbon credit, this is an offset, you need this data with these signatures and you get a carbon credit related token. And that's the first step, right? That's going to change the world on its own. But then you look at nature related markets, you look at the trillions and trillions of dollars that are required in order to move the needle in this space. And I have to say, but there's only one distributed ledger that can handle that sort of detailed, high fidelity, low grain data, tokenized, and scaled at the rate it needs to scale to actually tackle the problem. So we've joined I think everyone knows we were in the Interwork Alliance. We defined the standards. We helped define the standards that became the token taxonomy framework, which has then been enshrined in the Guardian. We're also working with the Task Force for Nature on their nature-related markets framework in much the same way. That work is going to feed into our ability to define policies that might be, habitat renewal plus carbon plus water plus whatever else, So I'm super excited about that. And that's steps 2, 3, and 4, and will keep us busy for a little while.
Yeah, so Katryna mentioned we're at the beginning of the beginning here. I mean, I would say we're at the beginning of the beginning for Hedera as well. We might be in the middle of the beginning for DLT Tech in general, but either way, we're really early across the board. Rob, how do you think the evolution of the Hedera ecosystem is going in general?
Oh, from my perspective, it's going amazingly. As we know, there's more announcements than I can keep up with, and that's, I'm at the epicenter of all things Hedera, or what? Actually, I shouldn't say that because it's a decentralized organization. So I'm maybe at the heart of one of the clusters in a decentralized organization, but it's hard to keep up with everything. Our 4 funds are working super fast to onboard new grantees. We're going to be seeing some amazing turnaround over the course of the next few months as these products and businesses kind of hit production. Our accelerator strategy, we've got Outlier Ventures, but we've got a number of others that we will announce very soon, is only going to scale that up. So, it's wonderful having a technology that will scale and will kind of handle all of this traffic and you can trust and you can rely upon, and you can just go out and I've got the best job in the world, right? I ideate, I talk to founders, I advocate for Hedera, and it's the best job in the world.
Good stuff. So, and one thing, I was talking to somebody yesterday and they were asking me questions about, the broader crypto market. And I was like, I can barely keep up. Actually, I can't keep up with everything that's going on in Hedera compared to the entire crypto market. There's a lot going on and it's a lot of fun. So Katryna, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to pass on to the audience before we let you go?
I think I just have to pick up on a couple of things that Rob said, because I think there's an underlying foundational aspect to why Hedera, outside of everything we've just discussed. So I think there's a few things. For the regulated markets, I hope what we're doing will help to build that trust from an audit and traceability point of view. For the voluntary markets, it's also a way to get started, and whether or not it's an auditor or it's somebody from that wants to make a difference, that says, well, look, this is a way to create a policy, or this is a way to take an interested, aligned group from a voluntary point of view and start to shape that. So I think I want to make the point that the beginning of the beginning also means lots of opportunity for collaboration and for people to shape this. So I think there's an empowering part of that. The second thing is I have a strong held belief, and I know this is something that Rob shares, is that we will get to a place where everything on the planet will be tokenized in some way, whether or not it's our identity, whether or not it's a thing, a person, an object, money, loyalty, whatever. And the minute that we can uniquely identify anything and everything, well, it also means that we can uniquely ascribe some kind of value or some rules around the exchange of that. Which means that we're going to be creating, we're going to have a lot of compute power, and we're going to be creating a lot of tokens. And therefore, what is that going to do to the planet? And I think we can't have this conversation without saying one of the big motivators for us was Hedera being carbon negative, and to recognize that by addressing some of these issues, you can't at the same time be contributing to the problem. And I think that's a critical aspect from a foundational point of view in terms of integrity. Everything that Rob has said in terms of speed, stability, scalability, all of those things are really critical. But if one of the objectives is to make a difference in terms of sustainability, well, then you need a technology that is going to address that, not create more issues. And so I think that's a really that's a very important point. And And in summary, what I would say is we are at the beginning of the beginning. It's an opportunity for these initiatives to be shaped. There's lots of opportunity to contribute to how policies, data can be visualized in a way that's meaningful and helpful. So that feedback loop is really important. And we're doing it alongside a community that we love working with, and I think is making a difference.
Okay, so as a quick follow-up, you mentioned collaboration. Who would you like to reach out to Meeco to possibly collaborate?
So I've been working with Envision at the moment, creators of Guardian. We're also working with Dovu. We're working with Timeless. So there are already some organizations right now that are using Guardian and doing some great things. But there are other actors, for instance, auditors. You know, what would make their life easier in this space? What is it that would make it easy or comparable to be able to have access to that data and that visualization? What does this do to help us understand the type of zero knowledge proofs that are important? So right now we're focusing on location. What's the obvious next thing? So I think once we're ready to go, ta-da, here we are in the world. I mean, our experience team right now are working with other stakeholders in terms of shaping and validating. As we hit some, challenges around, how are we going to do this? We're reaching into the existing Hedera community to get feedback and direction. But I think once it's in the wild, what's next? I think sometimes when you're creating something, you have a vision for it, and then when you share it into the world, then it's quite amazing how people come back and say, well, what about this and what about that? And it becomes really obvious when it's said, but at the moment it doesn't seem obvious. And so I think the key thing is getting MVP into market, supporting what Guardian is doing, and then looking at what are the stakeholder interests in terms of what comes next. Where do we take this together?
Yeah, very exciting. Rob, how about you? Anything in closing?
No, I'm just I'm very happy with the progress within the ecosystem. So I get people coming to me and Wes all the time saying, "Oh, we downloaded the Guardian, we spun it up, we've had a couple of cracks at building bosses. What do you think?" And that's where we want to be. That's the heart of open sourcing all of this technology, because we don't know. We literally don't know how people are going to use it, and I'm very, very excited about that. But we're corralling all the right forces, I think, and we're pointing them in the right direction. And I'm going to stand back and enjoy the show, then.
That's it. I'm doing the same. Thank you both so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon. And
thanks,
good
Brandon.
to see you, Rob. Yeah.